Welcome to the Ciphered Reality Podcast from RIT Cybersecurity, small businesses partner in proactive cybersecurity. I am Mike Rotondo here with my co-host Mari Cherry, where we unravel the mysteries of cybersecurity one bite at a time. From digital heists to hacker exploits, we uncover online threats and the strategies to stay ahead. Whether you're an IT pro, business owner, or just safeguarding your personal data, this is your guide to the cyber world. Today, we are going to go through some cybersecurity news and discuss SMB security.
So let's get into our first news story. PowerSchool hacker pleads guilty to student data extortion scheme. You never hear about anyone getting caught. I feel really bad that it's a 19-year-old, but, apparently he did some damage. Yeah. He collected a lot of personal data, and he pled guilty. They caught him. You don't hear about that very often. At least I don't see it very often.
It's pretty rare. They must have really had something on him. I'm pretty sure it was more than a random IP and a guess. He left his wallet somehow or left a digital copy of his driver's license somewhere. So, yeah, this kid apparently went for a telco company to do ransomware with, and then they said no. So he went for the school, and they said, okay. So,
okay.
And apparently his cohorts, I think that was probably the problem, is that he had friends that helped him because they tried to extort on their own.
Next one. Van Helsing ransomware builder leaked on hacking forum. The Van Helsing ransomware as a service operation published the source code for its affiliate panel, data leak blog, and Windows encryptor builder after an old developer tried to sell it on the RAMP cybercrime forum.
Yeah, and what I think is interesting is that it was one of their old developers that did it. Be careful who has your source code. You remember last week we were talking about WhatsApp?
Yeah.
Total non sequitur. So I got hooked up on LinkedIn from somebody that's like, yeah, we have a opportunity for you with this company. Your skills align with ours. Just send us your WhatsApp number. I was like, really? Did you listen to the podcast and just decide to stay with us? Is that what it was?
No, I get those all the time.
Yeah.
All the time.
I just thought it was a coincidence. It's like, we just did a podcast on this. All right. Next story.
So this one kind of ties in with our topic for this week. It's Arla Foods confirms cyber attack disrupts production, causes delays. Arla Foods has confirmed to Bleeping Computer that it was targeted by a cyber attack that has disrupted its production operations. So it results in product delivery delays or even cancellations. So that's, obviously no good for any business. I don't know how big this company is. I should have looked that up, but
I think they're like a $15 billion company. So,
okay.
And 39 countries. Just
in Germany, though, right?
Yeah, it was their production thing in Germany. It was interesting that they didn't say what they did, but apparently they didn't show up as a ransomware because it didn't show up on any of the forums. So it's like, who knows? And there's a lot of times there's hacks out there that will attack production systems, not computer systems, but the actual production systems that like manufacturing systems.
Ransomware gangs increasingly use SkitNet post-exploitation malware, SkitNet, BossNet, to perform healthy post-exploitation activities on breached networks. So is this like piggybacking?
Yeah, this is something they're buying as a service. And it's like, it's almost like buying a Kali, or almost like downloading the Kali Linux box, except you're paying for it. And it's got a bunch of tools included. And if you look at it, the tools are really, there's multiple remote access tools. There's PowerShell tools. There's all sorts of things. It's kind of cool. The brokers that sell access so they're probably getting in that way. And then they're buying the post-exploit software. So they're buying it, they're exploiting it, they're buying the access, they're exploiting, and then they're using this tool as well. So they may be, junior grade, startup wannabes because they're not using their own tools for this. They're actually using somebody else's tools for this.
Okay. All right. That's all I have for news today. I only picked 4. We'll move on to the podcast topic. This week, Cyberawareness for small, medium businesses.
Yeah.
Scenario number 1.
Okay.
An employee at a company of about 20-ish people clicks on a fly phishing email. It looks like a DocuSign request.
Okay.
So ransomware is installed that looks like client files.
Yeah.
That's no good.
No.
So yeah, don't click on phishing emails. So I have a few, but what are some negative impacts that come to mind for you?
Well, so depending on what the executable gets dropped, if it's ransomware, his computer get locked up, ransomed, held for ransom. If it is a rat or something of that nature, your remote access Trojan, you could have access to that device and then use it to try and, do privilege escalation with his account and try and get into more control systems and additional systems and maybe ransomware the whole company. Or you can install a worm that might be able to do that. And then the other thing that you could do, like we just talked about with Skitnet, is once they're in, you drop one of those post-exploit tools and run amok.
Basically the same. Days of downtime with no access to case files or emails. Ransom demand, which you said, damage to trust and potential legal exposure.
That's always a big one that people forget.
And then just as a pull it all together right at the end here, smaller businesses usually lack layered defenses that larger enterprises use. So what are some of these defense layers practiced?
Well, the first thing should have been some kind of training so that they didn't click on a DocuSign from some rando who just sent them a DocuSign, So training would be the easy one there. Appropriate antivirus software, anti-malware software that might have sandboxed that box, and then all you really had to do was wipe it and rebuild. Things
Make it
like
sound
that.
so easy, though.
Well, I've been doing this forever. I explained actually to that first meeting I had this morning, and they said, "Well, what are your qualifications?" Because I was talking to someone for a client, and they're like, "Well, I've been doing IT security since before it was an actual thing. It was just doing your job as a network admin." And they're like, "Oh."
All right. So training. Don't click on those freaking fly phishing emails, you guys.
By the way, fly phishing is a term that we've adopted, and if it goes viral, Mari gets all the credit for that. So, well, you know what? You know why that name actually works? Because whale fishing is going after the CEOs. So fly fishing is going after the regular people.
The little guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Moving on. Scenario number 2. A small retail company uses third-party marketing platform. The vendor is breached, exposing customer contact information.
Okay.
Okay. And again, what are some negative impacts that come to mind for you from this?
Depending on how much contact information they have, I mean, name, address, phone number, do they have credit cards? Do they have birth dates? Do they have, what all they have? And,
I bet.
That's if they're PCI, have to be PCI compliant, that's a huge PCI violation if there's a credit card breach. And those aren't cheap. But, the liability from having PII stolen, let alone PCI data, your reputation is going to be shot. If you're a SaaS solution and that's what you're using to secure it, no one's going to trust you. The legal liability, let alone paying for credit repair and all that kind of stuff, credit monitoring, so yeah, it'd be huge.
Yeah, I have negative publicity and customer distrust, hundreds of hours spent on breach notifications and cleanup, and potential compliance fines depending on jurisdiction. I also have this, apparently, smaller companies rarely vet their vendors or review security practices before integration, creating blind spots. I get it, though. Also, I think that maybe a lot of people don't know where to start
Probably not.
with that.
Probably not. We can help them. Well,
List
there's a
your
lot of people that
vendors.
just be like, "Oh, you're a company that people know. My buddy Jim likes it. Sure, we'll use you."
Yeah. Yep. That's a huge one. Word of mouth. Somebody, it's like recommended, and so it's like, yeah, sure, we'll just go for it. It can be really great sometimes. That can really work out a lot of the time, but it doesn't hurt to do a little homework.
Right.
Okay. Number 3.
Okay.
Third and final scenario.
Okay.
An ex-employee. Insider
like-
threat. Okay. An ex-employee at a tech startup still had access to internal systems a month after leaving. So
That's not good.
no, they downloaded proprietary code and leak it online in retaliation because they must have been really pissed off. What are some negative impacts?
Well, first of all, you've lost your proprietary source code, which means if you have competitors out there that are trying to copy you, they've got a really good start. Right. So,
Yeah.
and if they're willing to do that, what else do they have? They have your customer list?
Yeah,
They
I
have
bet.
all your contacts? Do they have,
I mean, it's a hypothetical, so let's say, yeah, let's go for it.
Yeah. If they're going to, they're willing to do that, then they're willing to sell you out to your competitor. And all of a sudden they have almost your product with access to your clients. That would
So
be
maybe
bad.
an NDA? might be.
NDA will only do so much. I mean, you then gives you some legal repercussions, but here's the better thing. A, don't let your developers have your source code on their laptops, right?
Yeah, okay.
Use cloud-based development environments. Two, disable USBs. Three, when you fire someone, shut off their dang access. It's like that pipeline, I think it was in 2020, 21, something like that. It was during COVID, so it was 20 or 21. Anyway, it was the pipeline that provided oil to the entire, basically, east of the Mississippi that got hacked, or at least the southeast. And the reason it got hacked is because there were VPN credentials in there from a former employee that had not been deleted properly. Cyber hygiene, kind of important.
Okay, so I have loss of intellectual property, possible reputational and financial damage, which pretty much is a given for any breach. Could be, potentially. Legal fees for pursuing the former employee. What would that look like, do you think?
Well, so if you're going to go after them civilly, that's going to be retaining an attorney, and then do they have anything to take? Is there any way to recoup the loss? Try and ruin their reputation for ruining yours, but I mean, you got to wonder, like, how much trouble are you in right now, and is it better to take care of the house before you go after that individual? Oh, and I have one more suggestion. Make sure his access is turned off.
Yeah, lack of proper offboarding controls.
Exactly.
Access controls.
Exactly.
I think that happens a lot, though. Probably a lot more than...
Especially in small companies.
You would think. Yeah. Which is crazy because less people. But I guess if you don't think someone's going to do something like that.
Or you write it on a Post-it note and get busy because you're a small company and you don't get back to it, don't get back to it, don't get back to it. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, breach.
That's why I think it's really important to start when you are small. So I think that's really great. Just, we try really hard to help you out. Let us help you while you're small.
Exactly.
And your security can grow with you. That way you're not like drowning
100%.
Trying to get everything figured out when it is a bigger company or things are more involved and you have way more employees.
Yeah. Trying to bolt that stuff on after the fact, impossible.
Yeah. Yeah. So start when you're small, guys. All right. Cyber awareness.
Yes.
I do have some questions. Would you like to?
Hopefully I have answers.
All right. Question number 1. What is the number one cybersecurity threat for small and medium-sized businesses?
That's a tough one. It's always going to be your people. That's always going to be your number one threat. But the other thing is thinking that and this is more of a esoteric thought, but it's thinking that you know what you're doing and not documenting what you need to do and not. It's overconfidence is also a threat. As a major threat. And then
I think that's something most people wouldn't think about.
See, I'm deep, much deeper than you think.
Yes.
The other thing that's out there is that, the Chinese philosophy of especially going after small business, they go after small MSPs because those small MSPs are selling cookie cutter solutions and they've got multiple SMBs, small businesses, and once you can hack that small MSP, you can hack 5, 10, 15 little businesses. Because, the small MSP is probably using one admin password, but they don't think it's like, well, it's one admin password for us. No, it's one admin password for all your clients, too. So.
All right. Well, that leads me to second question.
Okay.
How often should passwords be updated?
I would say my preference, even with MFA, is every 90 days.
Okay.
Now,
every 90 days.
There is a line of thought out there that with MFA, you don't need to change your password because you only have one piece. I do not subscribe to that thought.
Yeah.
What I would say on the outside is you could do up to a year if you have MFA in place.
Oh, okay.
But we really lean towards the 90 to 120 days. Admin passwords, I would prefer done every 30 days, but most people look at me like, dude, no.
What?
So, yeah. So
just
90
one more
days.
thing on my list.
Exactly. So 90 days is fine.
Or just maybe you could just add it to your quarterly list of things to do.
Exactly.
All right, number 3. What is one simple way to improve login security? I think I know what you're going to say.
Well, there's 2. There's
Oh, okay.
complex passwords that are longer. So a minimum instead of 8, go with 12 and require special characters.
Yeah.
And then the change frequency, or also add MFA to it. So it's one of those two.
Yeah. Perfect. All right. Why should employees avoid using public Wi-Fi for work?
Well, so there's a couple reasons. So if your computer is not totally secured, it can be easy. I mean, there's people that lurk on Starbucks. There's people that lurk on airport Wi-Fi. You don't know what
That
the
makes sense.
actual Wi-Fi is all the time.
Yeah.
Hotels are notorious for that. They'll say like hotel name guest, and that may not actually be the Wi-Fi, or it may not be spelled exactly the same. Or, if the hotel is, Mari's, slap and scratch, then it might be spelled instead of Maris, it may say Mares or Mariss.
Mares.
So it's just
Help
like,
me out.
but if you look at it real quick,
Yeah. Yeah.
you
Okay.
know,
So what about people who travel a lot for work?
well, they should have VPN and they should have, obviously, honestly, I mean, if it's a large enough company, they should have a SASE solution, which,
Sassy solution.
yeah, which connects. Or, I always connect off my phone. I just use my phone as a hotspot if I'm anywhere that doesn't have Wi-Fi I don't control.
Does that usually work? Is the signal strong enough?
Yeah,
Is it?
yeah. I mean, don't try and, stream movies, but,
Well, I guess that's my problem.
yeah, you can work from it.
All right. What is least privilege access?
Least privilege access is basically when you only give the user enough access to data to do their job and no more.
6. What's one sign an email might be a fly fishing attempt?
There's a couple. There's one that always catches me when it comes as an RE in the subject and you didn't initiate the conversation. You're
Okay.
obviously getting a reply that, that's
Is not a
pretty
reply.
obvious. Right.
Okay.
You
Okay.
know, or, an unusual request. If someone were to send an email to Mari saying, give me Mike's password, Mari would be like, why are you? Yeah, no.
Well, I get one all the time still. It started going to my junk folder, but it's from you,
No, really?
apparently. Yeah, asking for my mobile number. And it's always like all caps and like 10
Oh, yeah.
exclamation points. And I'm like, you already have it.
Yeah.
Delete.
You were just talking to me 10 minutes ago.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
All
Well,
right.
that's one of the things. It's a threat or a sense of urgency is also one. I mean, so they're trying to get you to act and react and press that panic button.
That leads me to, I was going to say the next question, but no. It reminds me of the insider threat PowerPoint we did. And it was, I can't remember exactly how it was worded, but something about knowing your employees
Yes.
and basically, meeting with them, figure out their intentions, and kind of mapping out a roadmap for each employee so you know their goals and what they want to do in the company and where they're going. And number 7, how do you protect company data on a lost laptop?
Well, so if you require lockouts on the screens, if the laptop's locked, then they can't get into it. Obviously you want to encrypt the drive. So unless they have that proper password combination, password and username combination, they're not going to be able to decrypt it. You've got a ton of remote access tools that if, you can simply remote wipe it. And we always do the scenario in our tabletops. It's like, you're at an airport and a fight starts by you or some disruption goes on. You look away from your laptop or you put it down and stand up, not locking it, and someone grabs it. What do you do? So it's unlocked. It's unprotected. I mean, and what do you do? And, all honesty, unless you're being stalked and they have a reason to try and take that, it's going to wind up in a pawn shop anyway. So,
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Can you
but
can you have things set up so if it's closed, it will lock?
yeah,
Open it back up.
it should shut off when you close it.
Number 8, why should vendor access be monitored?
Oh, that's an important one. You need to have vendor access monitor because you got to make sure they have the appropriate controls in place and see who's accessing you from the outside. And, vendors have to have the same stringent controls that you do because, rogue employee, a terminated employee from a vendor that doesn't, has a knife, axe to grind, could do as much damage to you as to their own company.
Yeah. Yeah, multiple access points. It's like, sure, your front door is probably locked, dead bolted, but if you have a side door, a garage door, and a back door that you're not doing anything with.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
All right, 9. What should happen when an employee leaves the company?
Terminate their access immediately.
Terminate access. 10. What's one thing you can do today to reduce your cyber risk?
Today, immediately,
Today. Yes, right now. One thing.
require all users to change
Right
their
this
passwords.
second. Oh, okay. That's pretty good, actually. Send an email.
Yeah.
Company-wide.
Yes.
Please change your password.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Right now. I mean,
so
that's
many
that's
crazy
a, that's
things
a
can
simple thing. I mean, I could
Yeah.
get a show and say, contact RITC Cybersecurity, which is viable. But, or contact a security vendor or, just do some basic hygiene. We have some free checklists up on the website that you can look at that'll give you the basics. Yeah.
All right, well, that's all I've got.
I think that's enough damage to ourselves, our reputation. Please listen. And with that, hasta la vista.